It's a Wednesday, it's February 4th. I'm Megan McKinney. This is Here First from IPR. Large crowds are continuing to go along with immigrants to their check-in appointments at a federal immigration office in Cedar Rapids. IPR's James Kelly reports organizers are trying to build a broader network to respond quickly to situations involving immigration enforcement.
Escucha Mi Voz, Indivisible, and 5051 are just some of the organizing groups whose members are showing up at the weekly demonstrations. Now Marie Barrios, with the Justice and Liberation Coalition and the Advocates for Social Justice, says organizers have been working on building a broader coalition over the past few months.
Since everything exploded in Minneapolis, we've had groups from Johnson County and Marion reaching out saying, hey, can we all just make a network and connect because this is getting serious? So, yeah, right now we are in the process of taking notes from Minneapolis.
Organizers have also held legal observer trainings aimed at educating people on how to act when witnessing immigration enforcement officers conducting their operations. I'm James Kelly, IPR News.
Senator Chuck Grassley says he's leaning toward voting for a controversial bill that would impose new voter ID requirements. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, or SAVE Act, mandates documentation proving citizenship to register to vote in the U.S. The bill has already passed the U.S. House. Several groups, including the League of Women Voters, are urging the Senate to reject it, saying it would disenfranchise tens of millions of U.S. citizens who can't produce documents like a birth certificate or passport. Grassley says the Senate can address some of those concerns, and the bill is needed to secure elections.
I think that I'm going to vote for the bill because I think I want to make it very clear to Iowans that if you aren't a citizen of the United States, you shouldn't vote, and we ought to have that certainty that comes with it.
Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer said on X on Monday the SAVE Act would be dead on arrival in the Senate and compared it to Jim Crow voting laws. The Iowa Senate is suggesting a 1.75% increase to school funding next year. IPR's Isabella Liu reports the bill passed out of a subcommittee.
The rate proposed is 0.25% less than what the governor is proposing. It's also less than the 2% rate approved by lawmakers last year. Republican Senator Lynn Evans, a former educator, called the bill a start, not a finish. He says lawmakers want to get negotiations going so districts can build their budgets.
When we're out talking to people in education, especially superintendents and school board members, that they want to know as early as possible. And having sat in that seat myself, I wanted to know as early as possible.
Those against the bill say the increase is not enough to keep up with inflation and to cover operational costs. They say even with the proposed increase, several school districts could end up with less funding because of declining enrollment. I'm Isabella Liu, IPR News.
An incarcerated person diagnosed with a terminal illness could be released to a care facility or home setting under a bill advanced by an Iowa House subcommittee. Each case would be reviewed by the Board of Parole. Victims of the offender could submit input, and people released for medical reasons would still be under supervision. Brian Weidenhouse is a lobbyist with the nonprofit Families Against Mandatory Minimums. He says the bill isn't about being soft on crime, but rather about financial responsibility.
This bill does not grant anybody release. It only grants the opportunity for a review, and we hope that in any instance where a release is granted, all concerns are addressed and covered.
A report from the nonprofit says Iowa is the only state without a compassionate release program. The Department of Corrections says 6 months of hospice care for an incarcerated person can cost $300,000 to $400,000. You're listening to Hear First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. Under the Trump administration, rising visa costs and fears at ports of entry are keeping more international artists and musicians away from the Midwest. Here in just a moment, hearing from some artists. Stay with us. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Here First from Iowa Public Radio. I'm Megan McKinney. International artists and musicians have long seen the U.S. and the Midwest as a place to share their work and build their careers. But for many foreign creatives, just getting here has become harder, more expensive, and fraught with fear. IPR's Josie Fischels reports for the Midwest Newsroom.
You're listening to Swedish folk a cappella group Kongoro. The group of 4 women embarked on their second U.S. tour last year, starting in Illinois. But for the first week of that month-long tour, member Emma Björling's voice was missing.
I was stuck back home without a visa.
To meet their scheduled tour dates, the group first paid nearly $3,000 in expedited processing fees for foreign artist visas. But because Björling was on a tour with a different music group in Canada at the time, she ran into additional delays caused by recent changes to U.S. non-immigrant visas. She was required to return home to Sweden to complete an in-person interview, which she says she hadn't been asked to do before. She ended up missing her international flight with the group while waiting for her visa. In the end, Congro lost money on its U.S. tour and will not tour the country at all in 2026.
With all the additional fees and costs and troubles and stress, it's flipping it all over, right? So it's not worth it, not financially and not stress-wise and workload-wise.
Visa processing fees and delays have grown significantly over the past year, discouraging international artists who want to perform in the U.S. And that's just part of the picture.
There have been a number of artists that have canceled, decided not to tour.
Mateo Mukahi is with the International Latino Cultural Center of Chicago, a nonprofit that invites international dancers, filmmakers, and musicians to share their work at different venues around the city. He says some artists are choosing to avoid the U.S. altogether, not just because of the paperwork, but because of fear over what might happen when they arrive.
If you're going to tour in another country and you get hassled to no end upon entry, it doesn't make you feel very welcome.
Immigration restrictions have intensified under the Trump administration, leading to heightened scrutiny of visiting artists at ports of entry. Last summer, a Colombian artist scheduled to paint a mural in Iowa was sent back home after being denied entry. The mural she'd created had to go up without her. A Czech clarinetist was forced to cancel a series of Midwest performances after being detained for hours because of a documentation issue. He was put on a flight back to Prague. Mukahi says artists still see the U.S. as a prestigious place to share their work. But now they're thinking twice.
I spoke personally to some artists who were like, I don't know if I want to deal with that. I don't know if I want to come in, even if I got everything in order, if I'm going to get hassled for 2 hours at the border.
While it's hard to quantify just how many foreign artists are skipping the Midwest, Jennifer Rowe with Folk Alliance International in Kansas City says other major markets, like Europe, feel more accessible right now.
I understand the rationale for that, but that's unfortunate for our communities here in the U.S. that are missing out on the opportunities for that cultural exchange.
Rowe's organization works to ensure artists are aware of resources that can help them travel to the U.S. to showcase their talents.
Providing people as they cross the border with the best information, the best way to respond to questions is the education that we like to provide to people.
She says cultural exchange is incredibly valuable, especially in the Midwest, which is home to many independent venues and rural communities that often support performances with grants.
There's so much to learn from bringing in people from different communities and cultures.
But until the process feels more predictable, arts organizations can expect artists to rethink their visits in the coming year. For the Midwest Newsroom, I'm Josie Fischels.
The Midwest Newsroom is a collaboration including NPR and member stations in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. The Midwest Newsroom is also a member of the Trust Project. I'm Megan McKinney. Thanks for taking the time to be informed on a Wednesday. I hope you have a fabulous day.